It was a scorching afternoon in Ouagadougou, the bustling heart of Burkina Faso, where the sun beat down on crowded streets filled with the hum of life. Ibrahim Traoré, the young president of the nation, sat in the back of his modest official car, driven by a trusted chauffeur. Fresh from a meeting in the city center, he was a leader who valued simplicity, often choosing a single vehicle over lavish convoys despite his high office. But on this day, the traffic was heavier than usual, and the car slowed to a stop at a busy traffic light, surrounded by the chatter of vendors and the honking of horns. As the car idled, a small figure approached the tinted window. It was a girl, no more than 9 years old, her clothes worn and patched, her face carrying a shy but determined smile. She held a tray of neatly tied packets of roasted peanuts, her small hands steady despite the weight of her task. "Sir, please, would you buy some peanuts?" she asked, her voice soft but clear, cutting through the noise of the street. Traoré's security team, ever vigilant, moved to gently wave her away, as they often did to keep the president safe. But Traoré raised a hand, his gesture calm but firm, signaling them to stop. He lowered the window and looked at the girl, her eyes bright with a mix of hope and hardship. "What's your name?" he asked, his tone warm and inviting. "Fatima," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper, her gaze flickering between him and the ground. "How much for the peanuts, Fatima?" he continued, his smile encouraging. 50 francs, sir," she said, holding out a packet with care. Traoré reached into his wallet, pulling out several bills, far more than the price she'd asked, and handed them to her. Her eyes widened, but before she could speak, he did something unexpected. "Driver, pull into the next quiet street," Traoré instructed, his voice steady but resolute. "And please bring Fatima along." The security team hesitated, exchanging glances, but they knew better than to question their president when he spoke with such clarity. Fatima, confused and a little scared, clutched her tray tightly as she was guided to the car. "Don't be afraid, Fatima," Traoré said, leaning forward to meet her eyes. "I just want to talk to you." His words, gentle and sincere, eased her nerves, though her heart still raced with uncertainty. Inside the car, Fatima sat nervously, her tray resting on her lap like a shield. Traoré noticed her unease and softened his voice further. "Fatima, how old are you?" he asked. 9, sir," she murmured, her fingers fidgeting. "Do you sell peanuts every day?" he pressed, genuinely curious. She nodded slowly. "Yes, sir. My father passed away, and my mother can't work much. I sell these to help buy food." Her words, simple and honest, struck Traoré deeply. He knew that countless children in Burkina Faso faced similar struggles, but hearing it from Fatima, so young yet so responsible, brought the reality into sharp focus. "Tell me, Fatima, do you like school?" Traoré asked, his tone filled with care. Her face lit up briefly, a spark of joy in her eyes. "I love it, sir. I used to go, but now I can't. We need the money from selling peanuts." Traoré listened quietly, his heart heavy. He thought of the dreams buried under the weight of poverty, dreams that children like Fatima deserved to chase. "You should be in school, Fatima," he said softly. "You deserve to learn and grow. I'm going to make sure you get that chance." Her eyes met his, wide with disbelief, as hope stirred in her heart for the first time in a long while. Fatima sat quietly in the car, her small hands still clutching her tray of peanuts, her mind racing with questions. Why would this important man, the president of Burkina Faso, care about her? Ibrahim Traoré, sensing her uncertainty, spoke again, his voice steady and kind. "Fatima, you're not alone," he said. "There are many children like you, and I want to help you all. But let's start with you. Tell me about your family." Fatima hesitated, then shared that she lived with her mother, Amina, who was often too weak to leave their small home, and her younger brother, Musa, who was only 5. "I sell peanuts so we can eat," she added, her voice tinged with pride despite her young age. Traoré nodded, his heart stirred by her courage. He knew that promises alone wouldn't change Fatima's life. Action was needed, and he was determined to act swiftly. "Fatima, I'm going to make sure you go back to school," he said firmly. "And we'll help your mother, too, so you don't have to carry this burden." Her eyes widened, a flicker of hope battling her doubt. No one had ever offered her such a promise before, and though she wanted to believe him, part of her feared it was too good to be true. Before parting ways, Traoré handed Fatima a small notebook and a set of pencils. "These are for you," he said with a warm smile. "Write down your dreams, Fatima, and soon, we'll make them real." She took the gifts carefully, her fingers trembling with gratitude, and mumbled a shy, "Thank you, sir." As the car returned her to the busy street where they'd met, Traoré's mind was already racing. Fatima's story wasn't just hers. It was the story of thousands of children across Burkina Faso, forced to work instead of learn, their futures dimmed by poverty. Back at the presidential palace, Traoré called an urgent meeting with his advisors and social welfare team. His voice was firm, filled with a quiet intensity. "Today, I met a girl named Fatima," he began. "She's 9 years old, selling peanuts to feed her family because her mother is ill. This is not the future we want for our children." His team listened closely as he recounted his conversation with Fatima, his frustration growing with every word. "We need answers," he said. "How many children are out of school? Why are families forced to rely on their children to survive? I want a plan now." His advisors scrambled to gather data, and within hours, they presented a sobering picture. Thousands of children in Burkina Faso were like Fatima, working on streets or in fields due to poverty, illness, or lack of schools. Many faced dangers, exploitation, abuse, or worse, while trying to earn a few francs. Traoré listened, his resolve hardening. "We start with Fatima," he said, "but we won't stop there. Every child deserves a chance to learn, to dream, to be a child." He instructed his team to find Fatima's family and provide immediate support, food, medical care for her mother, and school supplies for her and her brother. But Traoré knew this was only a first step. He began planning a larger program to bring children back to school, one that would offer free education, meals, and support for struggling families. As the meeting ended, he thought of Fatima's shy smile and her dreams, tucked away in that notebook. He vowed to keep fighting, not just for her, but for every child whose future hung in the balance. A few days after meeting Fatima, Ibrahim Traoré set his plans in motion. He couldn't shake the image of her small frame, carrying the weight of her family's survival on her young shoulders. Determined to act quickly, he sent a team of social workers to her neighborhood, armed with food baskets, hygiene kits, and school supplies for the most vulnerable families. Traoré insisted on joining them, wanting to see Fatima again and ensure his promises were kept. When they arrived at her home, a modest mud brick structure, they found her mother, Amina, weakened by a lingering illness, and her younger brother, Musa, playing quietly nearby. Amina's voice trembled with disbelief when she learned the president himself had come to help. "Sir, I never thought someone like you would care about us," she said, her words heavy with gratitude. Traoré reassured her gently. "You and your children matter, Amina. We're here to make sure you don't have to struggle alone." He turned to Fatima, who stood shyly in the corner, clutching the notebook he'd given her. "Fatima, I brought something for you," he said, handing her a new school uniform and a backpack filled with books and pencils. "This is for when you start school again." Her eyes sparkled with joy, and for the first time, she smiled without hesitation. Traoré explained that Fatima and Musa would be enrolled in a new government program designed to bring children back to school. The program offered free transportation, meals at school, and support for families to ensure children could study without financial strain. For Amina, the team arranged medical care and a small monthly stipend to help cover expenses, so Fatima wouldn't need to sell peanuts anymore. "Your only job now, Fatima," Traoré said, his voice kind but firm, "is to study hard and chase your dreams. Can you promise me that?" Fatima nodded eagerly. "I promise, sir," she said, her voice filled with determination. As Traoré's team worked to support Fatima's family, he pushed for broader changes across Burkina Faso. He met with international organizations, seeking partnerships to fund schools and health clinics in underserved areas. Reports poured in about the dangers street children faced, exploitation, violence, and lost opportunities, and Traoré grew more resolute. He launched an emergency plan that included temporary shelters for children without safe homes, free medical care for parents, and food aid for struggling families. "No child should work when they could be learning," he told his advisors. "We must give families choices, not force them to rely on their children." The work wasn't easy. Some communities lacked schools, and others had teachers stretched thin across crowded classrooms. Traoré began visiting rural areas, listening to families who shared stories like Fatima's. One grandmother told him her grandson sold fruit to buy her medicine, a story that echoed Amina's struggles. Traoré realized that poverty was complex, woven into every part of life, and solving it would take time. But he refused to let challenges dim his vision. He increased funding for rural schools, hired more teachers, and partnered with local leaders to build trust in the new programs. Back in Ouagadougou, Fatima's life was already changing. She started school, her backpack bouncing with every step, her heart light with possibility. Her teachers noticed her quick mind and love for learning, especially in reading and drawing. Traoré kept her in his thoughts, a reminder of why he fought so hard. Fatima wasn't just one girl. She was a symbol of what Burkina Faso could become if every child had a chance to shine. Months passed, and Fatima's life transformed in ways she had never imagined. She thrived in school, her love for learning growing with every lesson. Her teachers marveled at her progress, noting her talent for storytelling and her knack for solving math problems. One day, her teacher sent a letter to President Traoré's office, praising Fatima's dedication. She inspires her classmates. The letter read, "Fatima shows us what children can do when given a chance." When Traoré read the letter, a quiet smile spread across his face. It reminded him why he had entered politics, to change lives like hers, to build a Burkina Faso where every child could dream. Fatima's mother, Amina, was also regaining strength, thanks to the medical care provided by Traoré's program. The monthly stipend allowed her to buy food and medicine without relying on Fatima's peanut sales. Musa, Fatima's younger brother, joined her at school, his laughter filling their home with new joy. Fatima often sat with her notebook, the one Traoré had given her, writing stories about a girl who became a teacher to help other children. "I want to be like you, sir," she told her teacher one day, recalling Traoré's kindness. "I want to help people." Traoré, meanwhile, pressed forward with his mission. Fatima's story had sparked a movement across Burkina Faso. His national address, broadcast to every corner of the country, had stirred the nation's heart. "Our children are our future," he declared, his voice steady with conviction. "We cannot let poverty steal their dreams." Fatima's story is the story of thousands, and together, we will change it. Citizens responded with enthusiasm. Community groups launched after-school programs. Businesses offered training for older youth, and teachers volunteered to tutor struggling students. Traoré's reforms gained momentum, with new classrooms built, mobile health clinics reaching remote villages, and partnerships with international donors providing books and supplies. But challenges remained. Some critics called Traoré's plans too ambitious, warning that funds might not reach those in need. Others pointed to corruption, a persistent shadow in any system. Traoré tackled these concerns head-on, launching a public website to track every franc spent on education and child welfare. He made unannounced visits to schools, listening to students and teachers, ensuring his programs worked. During one visit to a school near Ouagadougou, he spotted Fatima, her head bent over a book, sketching a tree. "Fatima," he called, his voice warm. She looked up, grinning. "I'm learning about plants today, sir," she said proudly. They laughed, and her teacher shared how Fatima had become a leader, helping classmates with their studies. Traoré sat with the students, listening to their dreams of becoming doctors, engineers, artists. As he left, he placed a hand on Fatima's shoulder. "Keep shining," he told her. "You're showing us what's possible." In his office that evening, Traoré reflected on the journey. Fatima's success was a victory, but the fight was far from over. Poverty, underfunded schools, and fragile healthcare systems still loomed large. Yet, with every child like Fatima who returned to school, hope grew stronger. Years later, Fatima would stand at a school event, her voice confident as she thanked Traoré for changing her life. "He saw me when I was just a girl selling peanuts," she said, "and he gave me a future." Her words echoed across Burkina Faso, a reminder of what one leader's compassion, paired with action, could achieve. Traoré, listening from the capital, knew the road ahead was long, but as long as children like Fatima dreamed, he would keep fighting for a brighter tomorrow.